I'm here with an old friend, one of the smartest guys in any room, Mr. Anthony Scaramucci, aka the Mooch. He's a co-host of The Rest is Politics with another friend of mine, Caddy K, the brilliant Caddy K. He's a founding and managing partner of Scarbridge, and he's got a new podcast, Open Book, launching actually today on the Goalhanger Network. Congratulations, sir.
Thank you very much. But by the way, you're funny because we all looked up to you in our neighborhood, and every single one of us has read your books, right? So just want you to know that. It's not like, it's just important for me to tell you
I
that.
appreciate it, man. You are a man of the people. Let's get right into it. We'll talk about your podcast a lot, but let's just talk about some current events. So obviously the news of the last week, Jimmy Kimmel. Did you know he was coming back? I know you as a quote, you said he'll be back in 0.54 seconds or something like that. Give me your take on the whole thing and kind of wrap it up in a red bow for me.
So weirdly, like Jimmy and I have a relationship through a company that we're both advisors to. So this Denver-based company has me and him and a few other people that are on their advisory board. So I built a relationship with Jimmy, and I would say to you that when he got fired, he's fired me off a text. He said, "You and I have finally something in common. We've both been fired by Trump." Right? So he didn't see himself being fired by Iger,
Right.
But I applaud them bringing him back.
Yeah.
I think it was absolutely the right decision. But here's what I would say, and I would say this to anybody. If you're my boss, Donnie, and I'm on your show, you want to fire me, I've got absolutely no problem with it. It's when Brendan Carr calls you and tells you, you've got to fire me, otherwise we're going to muscle you, to quote Ted Cruz, like a mafioso don. That's where the problem really is in the country. And so Trump wants to stress us all out. He wants to press all the things in the country that none of us were worried about, none of our ancestors were worried about. And that is singular, targeted, focused governmental persecution. We didn't feel that in this country, but you do feel that in authoritarian countries. And so Trump is an authoritarian wannabe, which we both know, and that concerns me. But something happened this week where I am very optimistic, and that is a group of people in Hollywood, a group of people in tech are looking around saying, okay, we got to draw the line somewhere, and we got to start pushing back on this nonsense. And believe it or not, some of the Republicans are pushing back.
Sure.
Ted Cruz.
Rand Paul.
I was just going to say the senator from Kentucky, Rand Paul. Even McConnell has spoken out against Trump now. So I believe this. I believe the system is alive and well, despite the rhetoric, Donnie. And Trump is a declining political asset. He is his half-life right now is about 18 months. At the end of that midterm, he's going to be a real lame duck last 2 years.
We'll talk about that midterm in a second. I sense something happening this week also, because everybody I know who's a Trump voter, I have a lot of friends, as you do, voted for Trump, kind of each one to a person kind of said, no, this is not okay. And it was interesting. I was on Joe this morning and said that there was an Economist YouGov poll that said that I think almost 70% of people said, look, this is wrong, and only 15% thought it was something that was appropriate. So the public has a way of speaking up at a certain point, and this kind of hit home to everybody. It's like, whoa. So something did happen this week, and I think Disney realized. I think Iger also didn't want his legacy to be, because his legacy would have been completely tarnished. I think obviously people started to pull the plug on Disney Plus. The stock took a hit. The celebrities came out. So I think they made the right business decision for Disney, and they made the right decision overall, obviously.
How do you feel about Nexstar, if you don't mind me asking? I know it's your show.
Here's the reality of Nexstar and Sinclair, that the right is going to have a big stranglehold on the media going forward. I mean, Nexstar is going to do that, going to buy up one of their competitors. You put Nexstar and Sinclair together, they own a huge chunk of the affiliate base. You have now all of a sudden TikTok being bought by friends of Trump, Ellison and So What and so forth, and Mark Andreessen. And then we know who owns X. So you're going to have a big voice coming from the right on the media and controlling it. Everybody historically has talked about the hard left in the media and the left-leaning media. That's going to be a thing of the past.
Yeah, well, first of all, I think it already is a thing of the past. I mean, just look at the Fox News and look at the talk radio, conservative talk radio, and conservative podcasting like the Megyn Kellys of the world. And of course, and I'm sorry that he passed, and I'm sorry that there was political violence than Charlie Kirk. I knew Charlie. I had traveled with Charlie.
You got to respect him. I mean, I disagree with just about everything you said, but the guy was a superstar, and he was open for debate. And what a tragedy! What an absolute tragedy.
Yeah, but again, you want to talk about getting tired of stuff. Okay, Erica Kirk, who I do not know, never met her. I watched her speech, and her speech moved me.
Yeah,
okay, and again,
you could not be moved. Yeah.
One human being to another, Donnie, I was moved, and I accepted her graceful nature, followed up by, I disagree with everything that she just said. I hate my enemies, and I want to pound my enemies into the ground. Okay, and I'm telling you, it's not working the way it was working. I'm telling you, my father was in the construction business, had a great line. He said that you got a big rock, you got the sledgehammer hat, you hit the rock, boom, nothing happens. Boom, nothing happens. 90 times you hit the rock, nothing happens. The 100th time, Donnie, you hit the rock, it explodes. Now, was it that last time, or was it the pounding that took place over the other 99 times? And I think that's starting to happen now. I think people are looking at Trump.
What are you seeing beyond the latest Kimmel thing? What are you seeing, both from a qualitative or quantitative kind of perspective, that says, you know what, maybe this ship is starting to sink a little bit? What are you seeing?
Okay, so I'll give you the three big things. Okay, away from Kimmel, three big things. The rhetoric in the Senate from Republican senators is way up publicly. It was always there simmering underneath everything privately, Donnie. You know that. Yeah. But it's now open, and it's way up publicly. Number two, his team has told him high chance that Putin's going to lose. And he's now forced to change his rhetoric on Ukraine because Trump
hates losers. Hates losers.
Right. Even if Putin has compromise on him, he's not going to stay with Putin if it looks like Putin's going to lose. Okay, it's just not going to happen. Okay, that's Trump's personality. You know him as well as I do. And the last thing is the Wall Street crowd that I hang out with who voted for Trump, and they did.
Sure, I know.
They looked at Harris,
we know them all.
held their nose, and said, "I'm going back to Trump." I've now looked around and said, don't like it, and I'll make a prediction on your show. He's going to lose the tariff case in the Supreme Court. Remember, he's lost it twice. He lost it at the district level. Mm-hmm. He lost it at the appellate level. And the case, if these guys are conservative jurisprudential justices, they'll have to look at that case. Any type of originalism, if you will, of the Constitution, there's nothing in the statutes that he's using that gives him the right to impose those tariffs without authorization from the Congress. Nothing. And two prior courts ruled that way. And so he's throwing the Hail Mary here in the Supreme Court. Now, if Justice Roberts does a backflip for him, if you remember the case of Obamacare, Roberts said, well, we're going to treat this as a tax, and the Congress and the president have a right to use the taxation strictures in the Constitution to allow for Obamacare. But there's nothing even like that here. So I think he's going to lose that. And those three things are going to cause a change in the sentiment in the public. People will listen to his rhetoric, but underneath the rhetoric, there's a lot of people now saying, hey, I've had enough of this.
A very well-known businessman, one of the most well-known business, said to me, we're not at a constitutional crisis. We're only going to be at a constitutional crisis if he defies the Supreme Court. Do you ever see that happening? It could be in the tariff case or another thing, because the Supreme Court doesn't have an army. And we haven't gotten there yet. Where are you handicapping that?
So again, I think it'd be super tough. He hasn't done it yet, as you know. They've ruled against him on due process.
He's gone through the system at this point. I mean, it has not happened.
Right. So it's hard. It'd be hard for him to do that because there's something else going on which you know about, and maybe some of your viewers know about, but it's worth reiterating. It's the American lobbyist. Okay, what you and I would call the wolves of K Street are actually in force. So you could get a CEO, maybe even that businessman you're talking to, they can get out and praise Trump. They can go to the state dinner with King Charles and Trump. They can shake Trump's ass, shake his hand and kiss his ass. But then they're calling their lobbyists and they're saying, hey, Donnie, you got to make this go away. Yeah. Or, hey, Donnie, here's money to your K Street lobbying firm, can you please do this for me? And what's happening around Trump, the lobbyists are going to the people that work for Trump and saying, hey, you're going to need a job in 3 years. Are you sure you want to continue to push this? Do you want to find a way to pedal back on this? Do you want to find a way to move back on this if you're a congressional aide? So again, it's not just the elected officials. It's sort of that amorphous group of people that work in Washington that are aides to these officials that are unelected, that are getting heavy pressure on them right now. So I think it would be really hard for Trump to do that and to get the people together that he needs to do that. Remember on April 2nd, when he came down from like Mount Evil, like Orange Moses with the tablet, he's coming down with and no one understood the numbers. The people walked away. There was a lot of guys, middle of the week, Besant's going to Trump saying, hey, probably not the right guy to prosecute this for you. You may need to find another Secretary of Treasury. And Trump, when that happens, he backs up right away. Mm-hmm. He says, oh, no, we'll do this, we'll do that. Here's a 90-day delay. Here's a 120-day delay. And so there's a lot going on right now in the system that's stopping the craziness. I give them credit. They came out of the blocks with Project 2029.
Oh, they knew what they were doing.
Project 2025 running super hard. People didn't know how to react to it. But now they're starting to figure out a way from a corporate level, from a lobbyist level, from a legislative level to come back at him. And so I don't think the Supreme Court has an army, but I don't think Trump has as many willing accomplices as he wants you to think he has.
You mentioned 3 years. You also mentioned, you very famously, it's gotten a lot of attention, where you basically said, look, nobody's building a $200 million ballroom who plans on leaving. Let's just talk about that.
I think I said, no, I said that because that's him. He don't want to leave. Trust me, he don't want to leave for sure. Right. He would stay to the last minute. He's addicted to making money, which he's made a lot of money during this presidency, and he's addicted to attention. So no, he doesn't want to leave. But that's again up against the people that are going to force him out. I don't see guys like Cruz who have presidential ambitions, even Rubio, even Vance, saying, yeah, let's let Trump be dictator for life. It's the 250th anniversary of the country, and on or about the 250th anniversary of the country, we're going to end the democracy, end the Constitution, and let Trump be in there. By the way, Amy Coney Barrett said something to Brett Baer that you should go back and look at. He point blank asked her on her book tour, does Trump have the right to run for a third term? And she was very explicit about it. She said no. And so she's talked to her other justices about that. And so if he goes to try to run and does the Steve Bannon thing, and again, Donnie, if he was a 50-year-old version of Donald Trump, maybe we'd be more worried. But an 80-year-old version of Donald Trump with swollen ankles, I'm not as worried about.
I hear you. Let's talk economics a little bit. I was watching a video of you talking about inflation, how the average person doesn't really understand inflation. And you kind of broke it down in a primer that I thought was really interesting. Share that with my audience.
Well, think of the word inflation. Think of a ball. The ball is inflating, so the numbers are going up. And so what ends up happening to the average human, they're like, okay, I'm getting richer. So one of the examples I often use is my parents' home. Yeah. My parents bought a home on Long Island. My dad was a construction worker.
$16,000. See, I pay attention. I pay attention.
I appreciate it, Donnie. Right. You spent $16,000 in May of 62 on Zillow. They still live in that. My dad passed, but my mom still lives there. House is worth $750. That's the Zestimate on Zillow. However, if you really look at the inflation adjusted numbers, my parents didn't make any money on the house. And so what I tell people, think about it in the price of gold. My parents at that time, gold at $35 an ounce, they probably spent about 450 ounces of gold to purchase the house. But today that house is only worth, because gold's now 3,400, the house is only worth 250 ounces of gold. So the house has actually gone down in value. Yet my mom and dad, $16,000 to $750,000, they think they're richer. Said differently, okay, if you went back to the day that we took ourselves off the gold standard, which was August 15th, 1971, and you looked at a purchasing power diagram, $1 million US today, okay, is about $92,000 of $1972. So we've really hit ourselves hard in terms of the monetization of our debt and the devaluation of our money. It hurts lower and middle income people the most. The most pernicious, most regressive form of taxation is inflation. But Donnie, the politicians get away with it because people really honestly don't understand it. If you talk to my mom, she thinks her house went from $16,000 to $750,000. And in her mind, she's rich. And in my mind, the house has actually lost money on a purchasing power parity basis. And so this is the big dilemma for people. And the politicians get away with it. And so they're able to overpromise and undertax. And so that's created this huge problem. Think about it. Before you ask another question, I want you to think about it this way. I framed this for a group of students at Columbia a few weeks ago. George W. Bush, George Washington to George W. Bush, $7 trillion of deficit spending. Barack Obama, Donald Trump, Joe Biden.
They beaten it.
Donald Trump.
They beaten it.
$28 trillion of deficit spending, okay? Or Donald Trump in the first term, $8.2 trillion, was more than George Washington to George W. Bush spent. And so it just gives you a sense for how reckless we're becoming and why guys like Ray Dalio, friends of mine, are very worried about where we are in terms of the arc of our empire and our economic strength.
Yeah. I was having lunch with a couple of hedge fund guys today. They're waiting for the, I don't want to say a crash, but something to happen. It's just so frothy everywhere. And it's being fueled by so many AI companies with crazy valuations. And yes, a few will be left standing, but there's going to be a bunch of losers also, just like in the dot-com boom. How are you feeling, prognosis? Give me about where you see the market going over there, or the economy.
Look, I'm 37 years in the business. I've been through 9 recessions, 8 gigantic stock market corrections, the global financial crisis of '08, and the dot-com crash in December of 2000, as well as the crypto crash in 2022. So to think that you're not going to have a correction, a setback, a 20 to potentially 25% move down in the markets, I think that's naivete. That's a lack of understanding about how this stuff works. Now,
Gravity.
Exactly. So what will set that off? I don't think it's any time soon, Donnie. That's my opinion. I'd love to talk to those.
They said, by the way, they think it's 6 months, 8 months away, but there's something happening.
Yeah, not anytime soon. Won't be this quarter.
Yeah.
Won't be this year. Could it be the middle of next year? So what's going to happen is the Fed's going to start cutting rates, and your viewers and listeners need to know that when you cut rates, interest rates are the financial gravity of financial assets. So meaning as the rates go down, your assets go up because of the way they're discounted. When you think about the discounted cash flows, your assets are going to be worth more. You have to just think about it as the physical gravity of financial assets. So to me, the Fed's got at least 75 more basis points to cut, which will create some space for the market to sort of stay where it is. But, listen, a lot of bad things could happen right now. One of the things I really fear is the pullout of the Arab nations of the Abraham Accords. They got into that deal and Trump won. They wanted to do business with Israel. They wanted to eventually recognize Israel. Part of the Hamas strike was to stop the Saudis from crossing over into the land of recognition. And I fear that if this thing that happened in Doha and some other things that are happening right now, if that breaks apart, I think that's going to cause a further crisis in the Middle East. There'll be a lot of unintended consequences. And remember, you close the Strait of Hormuz, it's only 23 miles. It would be very bad for the oil markets. It'd be very bad for the world. So to me, not saying it's going to happen, and I'm not an apocalyptic guy, but having seen the movie before, you got to set yourself up with some level of diversity to protect yourself.
I want to talk about one of the most damaged brands on the planet. You've talked about this, and that's the Democratic Party. And I'm terrified for them because what I see happening is I see all the energy on the far left. I think this knucklehead Mandami is going to win in New York. I think it's almost a given at this point. And I think that a lot of people across the country are going to go, That's the winning formula. That's what we're going to do it. And you're going to see a lot of moderates getting primaried on the hard left and winning primaries. And I think it's going to be a disaster because you're not going to win it. You're never going to win a general election again. This stuff may work in New York if you see what works in Michigan, people like Elise Slotnick. So that's what scares me about the Democrats. And right now there doesn't seem to be a vision. You can't just be about bashing Trump. You got to stand for something. And I don't think the Democrats know what the essence of their brand is right now.
Well, because they're fighting with each other. There's a civil war going on in the party. There's an ideological civil war. Like you're saying, the left is looking for a more perfect version of communism. Maybe they found that in Mondami. I don't know. I'm not a Democrat, but I will say this about the Democrats. They don't like opening the tent. They did two things last year that I still don't understand. Lyndon Johnson would have never let that happen. They let Elon Musk out of the party, and they let Bobby Kennedy out of the party. How the hell do you do that? Okay, you don't let those guys out of the party. You're not going to inviting them to the UAE. The UAW president's calling and telling you can't invite Elon Musk to the electrical vehicle summit. You say, hey, look, I'm really sorry, brother. You're voting for me anyway, and I'm bringing Elon Musk to the vehicle summit. Yeah. Moreover, Bobby Kennedy, you cut a deal with Bobby Kennedy. He's a legacy Kennedy. You may not like him. You may think he's a kook. It really doesn't matter, Donnie. You don't let these guys out of the tent. Robert Caro had a great line that was uttered by Lyndon Johnson. I want all the elephants inside the tent pissing outside the tent. I don't want elephants outside the tent pissing into the tent.
I love that.
Okay. And Johnson would have never allowed that. So that's number one. Number two, when people are looking to help you, you open the tent and you bring them in, even if you don't like them. Okay. Winston Churchill brought in Joe Stalin, hated his guts, needed to beat Adolf Hitler, flew back and forth to Moscow to curry favor with Joe Stalin. You had guys that are Republicans that wanted to defeat Trump, myself included. We were not allowed to be part of the process. Why? Well, I once worked for Trump, and so the hard left of the Democratic Party, I'm canceled. Okay, I helped the vice president on her debate prep, but I was told by her staff, we're not going to fly around on the plane because there's hard left people on the plane that hate your guts. Did they hate my guts? Yeah. Well, they don't even know me. Yeah. Well, no, they hate your guts. You once worked for Donald Trump. You're canceled. So if you've got 10, 15% of that party that wants to cancel the 80 million people that voted for Donald Trump, you are a lost party. Okay. You're a brand manager. Okay. And I've been in a street fight my entire life. One thing you got to do in a street fight, you have to sometimes make peace with the people that you're fighting with, Don.
Sure.
And they're not willing to do that until they are. They could end up, Trump could still win the midterm.
Absolutely.
Let's give everybody a newsflash.
Absolutely.
Okay?
Absolutely.
Because they're so disorganized, and he's not doing well. He has a low approval rating, but again, it's always a relative evil vote.
But the Republicans have a higher approval rating than Democrats. And the Democrats,
and they're more trusted. Can you believe that, Donnie?
That's
George?
amazing. That's amazing.
Who do you trust more? The 12-point spread, Republicans over Democrats.
If you were going to cherry pick one candidate for the Democrats going forward, who would it be?
I like Newsom.
He's starting to grow on me a little bit. I got to tell you, he's going to leave a lot of the crazy liberal stuff behind because he's a smart, pragmatic guy, and he's got the fight in him. He's very articulate. I was never a Newsom guy, and I'm not signing on for him right now. But he seems to understand the language you need to use today. It's an economy of attention, and he understands that, and he's good at it.
But let me tell you why I like him, if you don't mind.
Sure.
He's adapting.
Yeah.
Okay. I did his podcast about 3 months ago, and I was talking to him about, like, dude, you're in California, the fourth largest economy in the world. How are you letting the right-wing media beat your ass in like this? You're the economy of tech. You're the economy of Hollywood and the exportation of our culture. You've got energy and defense contractors up the wazoo, up and down the state. How are you not defending that state's economic prowess relative to the other states? Number one. Number two, you made some bad decisions. What's killing Andrew Cuomo right now, and I love Andrew and gave him a lot of money for his campaign. I
like Andrew a lot. I've been a friend for a long time.
But what's killing Andrew, what about the bail reform?
Yeah.
He signed it into law. Okay. And so he did things that helped to contribute to the current problem. And none of these politicians are addressing affordability. And I'm not saying Zoran is addressing it. He's obviously going to fail at addressing it because it's the wrong policies. But the young people are coming up to me and they're saying, I'm voting for Zoran. You're voting for Zoran? That's ridiculous. Why? Well, you know what? We can't afford to live here
that's
anymore.
the answer. He's hit that nerve, and that's obviously the nerve that the Republicans hit in 2020, 2024. I mean.
But remember this, Donnie, you know, the fourth turning is here. If you read the book, The Fourth Turning, 35 years ago, Neil Howe wrote that you get 4 generations after a big crisis. That would be the Second World War. And then the people start forgetting why the institutions were put in place to protect people. And because a young politician like Zoran doesn't have that living memory of the reasons why we put certain things into place. So now they're like, well, let's try these new things. I'm the new flavor. You guys did it all wrong. You know, we always have that generational struggle, the old and the new.
Yeah.
You did it all wrong. Let me do it this way. And they're going to learn the hard way with this kid.
Let's talk about the new podcast. Your podcast with Caddy is wildly successful. I think you get like over 7.5 million views and watches a month, which is crazy. Definitely beat our podcast. What's the new podcast?
Well, you know, the title of it is Open Book, so it's a little bit of a double entendre. I see myself, you're this way. I see myself as an open book where I try to be as open and as honest with people as possible. But I'm interviewing best-selling authors. So I had, as an example, our friend Eli Honig on recently. Wow. I've had Daniel Silva, who's been on Morning Joe with you many times, Ken Follett. I'm going to best-selling authors, Henry Winkler, saying, hey, I've read your book. I want to have you on my show for 30 minutes to talk about the book, to reignite the curiosity of reading. And I often tell young people, it was easier before inflation. Donnie, I used to say, for $10 and 10 hours of time, you could get 10 years of experience from an author. It's about $35 now, but you get the point I'm making. And I want people to get reignited listening to authors write about their books. So I interviewed Patrick McGee recently, which will be released shortly on this new program, on Apple in China. I think that was probably the best business book I read this year. And it's about the growth and restoration of Apple, but it's also about its relationship with China and how, frankly, China took advantage of Apple and more or less stole a lot of their intellectual property and a lot of their technology and infused it in some of their companies like Huawei. And so it's a great book about corporate espionage. It's a great book about international trade and supply chain management. And so for me, I want to bring people on, 30-minute crisp interview, talk about the strengths and weaknesses of the book, and get people listening and ignite. And we've got some fun sponsors on the show. And Goalhanger liked it enough where they wanted to pick it up and put it into their network. And Goalhanger, of course, is the network that Caddy and I do our podcast. The rest is Politics US on.
How did Caddy and you get together? I know I asked you this before, but I don't remember this.
Blind date, Donnie.
That's it.
That was a blind date. You know, that wasn't even no sweeping to the right or left on Match.com. That was a blind date. So I interviewed her for her book, The Confidence Code.
Great book. Great book.
Yeah, great book. Her and Claire Shipman wrote it. And so my only interaction with Caddy K prior to the podcast was I interviewed her for the book. And I, of course, read the book. And she called me blindly. And she said, hey, I'm thinking about doing a podcast. By the way, Donnie, Michael Lewis was her first choice. I mean, you know, it still hurts me, you know, because I have a fragile ego. Yeah. I'm a very sensitive soul.
Well, that's good. That's good company, though. That's good company.
Yeah. So, you know, I mean, he said no. He said he was too busy. So I was like the second guy on the list, I guess, for the prom date. But I'm sure I was probably 10th, but she hasn't told me who the other 8 people are. But make a long story short, she came to me with the idea. The Goalhanger guys, Alistair Campbell is somebody I knew from politics. And I went and had lunch with those guys. I said, hey, we'll pilot the show. We'll try it out. And it's been very successful. Knock on wood. I've got great chemistry with her. You know her
She's
a long
great.
time.
She's great. She's the best.
She's a wonderful person, class act. She's incredibly well prepared, and she's very balanced. She's not Queen's Donnie Deutsch,
Right.
or Long Island Anthony Scaramucci. So, it's sometimes like
it's,
having
it's
John.
like putting a little velvet over all the prickly stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
My cousin who puts in Autoglass on Long Island, he said, Anthony, it's like John Travolta and Olivia Newton-John doing a podcast in character. And of course she's smoking the cigarette now. She's at the leather jacket phase.
I love it.
Of the whole thing.
Anthony Scaramucci, you are a class act. You are a gentleman. I meant what I said. You are one of the smartest guys in any room, and a nice gentleman.
You're sweet to say that. And again, I've learned a lot from you. I remember The Big Idea. I remember the show, watching it at night.
It was a good show.
I had it taped. I read your books. I think the first one was The Big Idea, maybe even. I think it was the name of the book,
It's right? The second one. The first one was Often Wrong, Never in Doubt.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Often Wrong, Never in Doubt. I love that line. The second one was A Big Idea.
Yeah.
But I read that. I saw that was more like a rule book of yours, the Often Wrong, Never in Doubt.
Yeah, that was kind of my philosophy.
Giving that book out to a lot of young people, because I think it's important. We learn in school not to take risks. We learn in school to obey the teacher. But somebody like Donnie Deutsch can teach you that it's okay to be civil and professional, but take risks, because that's really where the arc of your real journey is. When there's a little bit of adrenaline laced into your decision making, that's where the real journey starts.
Amen. You guys, you're my soul brother. We think a lot alike, my friend. He's the co-host of The Rest is Politics. He's the founding and managing partner of Skybridge. Listen to the new podcast, Open Book. He's a best-selling author of 5 books. He's a man of the people, Anthony Scaramucci. I appreciate it, buddy.
I appreciate it. Very generous of you, my man. Thank you.
Everybody, thanks for watching. If you like it, hit that subscribe button. And we love having you here watching On Brand. And just don't miss any future episodes. So don't forget to hit that subscribe button. We'll see you next time.